قضاء حوائجكم الثانية بأعلى أصوات. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأولين والآخرين وأشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين، المعروف في أعلى السماوات بأحمد وعلى وجه الأرضين بأبي القاسم محمد. وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المنتجبين الغر الميامين، ولا سيما حجة الله في الأرضين وقائم الهداة المهديين عجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف. قال سيدنا ومولانا زين العابدين وسيد الساجدين في خطبته في قصر يزيد في الشام: أنا ابن من رأسه على السنان يهدى، أنا ابن من حرمه من العراق إلى الشام تسبى. Our Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam said, I am the son of the one whose head is on a spear and presented as a gift. I am the son of the one whose women are captivated from Iraq to Syria. تعجيل لفرج إمامنا صاحب العصر والزمان, to hasten the holy appearance of صاحب الزمان عجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف, and to be among his supporters and companions. Please recite one loud salawat ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. In this holy night, Laylatul Jum'ah, the night of the ziyarah of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, we'll take our hearts to that holy shrine in Karbala, as it's narrated in the book of Mafatih al-Jinan by Sheikh Abbas al-Qummi Ridwanullahi ta'ala alayhi. Every mu'min who performs the ziyarah of Imam Hussein in every Jum'ah night, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will remove and forgive all his sins, and he will be with Imam Hussein alayhi salam in Jannah. And when a companion asked Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, how can I visit Imam Hussein alayhi salam in every Jum'ah night, and I am very far from Karbala? So Imam alayhi salam said, you turn your face towards Karbala and you say, Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah, Assalamu alayka wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And inshallah, we'll do also the ziyarah of Imam Hussein. And by this, Imam alayhi salam says, you will get the thawab of one ziyarah and one hajj and one umrah. So inshallah we'll do also the ziyarah all together, dear brothers and sisters, and say Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah, Assalamu alayka wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And inshallah you will take the thawab of the ziyarah of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, especially in this painful night, which is the 20th night of the martyrdom of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. These days and these nights are the most painful. These days on year 61 after Hijrah were the most painful days for the hearts of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, especially this night, the night of the 1st of Safar. And I thank the dear brothers and sisters in Dua Kumayl Group. I thank Dua Kumayl Group for arranging this majlis in this night, which is a very painful night for Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. And we should know our history. We should know the history of our Imams. Usually in other years, this night may pass without knowing about it and without knowing about the suffering of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam in such a night. So what happened on the 1st of Safar? We are the Shi'as of Ahlul Bayt. We are the followers of Ahlul Bayt. What happened in the 1st of Safar, dear brothers and sisters? What's this painful occasion? 1st of Safar. In the 1st of Safar, the caravan of Sabaya, the prisoners of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, entered Damascus where they were stoned and cursed and humiliated. Then they were brought chained with ropes and chains in front of Yazid in the palace of Bani Umayyah. And Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam suffered in this day to the extent that when they asked Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam, what was the most painful calamity that you have faced? Imam alayhi salam cried for a long period. Then he said 3 times. What did he say? Ahsantum. Ash-Sham, Ash-Sham, Ash-Sham. 3 times. We suffered the most there. And that happened in this day, the first of Safar. Dear brothers and sisters, we may have an idea of the first of Safar and what happened in it, or many other important incidents in the life of our Imams, but we always have this uncertainty and this scattered ideas here and there. And the main reason for this is that these ideas about the life of our Imams were not presented to us in a simple, brief and simple and clear way. And that's why inshallah tonight in this lecture we'll present a very important period in the history of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. The journey of the caravan of Sabaya of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam from Karbala to Shaam. This very important period of history of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam in a very clear, brief and simple way. Inshallah, we'll explain all this journey of suffering and of pains in only 3 minutes, in the most brief and simple way. So please give me your attention and inshallah we'll start telling you about the journey of Sabaya. So in brief, all this journey of suffering of the Sabaya were between 2 main cities, Karbala in Iraq and Damascus in Syria. So Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam were brought from Karbala to Damascus, and then they returned back from Damascus to the Karbala in the day of Arba'in. And all this journey took 40 days. Only took 40 days, and that's why that day is called the day of Arba'in. Arba'in means 40. And the soldiers of Yazid were able to use a very straight line, a very shortcut way from the south of Iraq in Karbala to the south of Syria, and only in 10 days. But according to the orders of Yazid, they wanted Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam to suffer more and pass through more cities and more towns to be humiliated more. So it took them 20 days, and after 20 days they reached to Damascus in this day, which is, what is today? Just say, the first of Safar. And inshallah we'll explain all this journey in a very simple way, in a very clear and brief way. And to make it as much as easier for you, I will use this paper. This paper which has a shape of a rectangle. And on this paper, as any rectangle, you see that there are only 4 angles of this rectangle. And these 4 angles symbolize the 4 main cities in this journey of suffering. 2 of these cities are in Iraq. Karbala here in the south of Iraq, and Mosul here in the north of Iraq. And then Damascus here in the south of Syria, and Aleppo, Halab here in the north of Syria. To explain it more, I'll turn this rectangle here, and maybe you can see here 4 points. These 4 points are 4 main cities. So it was very easy for the soldiers of Yazid to just come straight from Karbala here in a straight line, in a shortcut way, to Damascus here in the south. But they used the most distant way. They went first up here to Mosul in the north of Iraq, and then in this line here, and then from Mosul in the north of Iraq, they came in this line here to the north of Syria, to Aleppo. And then from here, from the north of Syria in Aleppo, they came down in this way to the south of Syria in Damascus. And all this journey took 20 days. But when Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam wanted to go back to Karbala, he didn't use all this distant way. He used the shortcut way, which is from Damascus here in the south, again back to Karbala here in the south. And with this movement, the shape of this rectangle was completed. And this is the whole journey of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. 40 days from Karbala to Mosul to Aleppo and then to Damascus. This is in brief. This was in brief. For 3 minutes, we explained for you this journey of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam in order to be printed in our minds and to memorize it and to remember it at every time. It depends on these 4 main cities, and all of it happened in 40 days. So, Alhamdulillah, we have explained this in a very, very simple and clear way. Now, inshallah, in the rest of the lecture, we will tell you about all the events that happened in this way, in these 40 days, till the day of Arba'in with more details. Inshallah, we'll discuss it and explain it tonight, inshallah, starting by one loud salawat ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, after the day of Ashura, on the 11th day of Muharram, they were moved from Karbala to where was the first stop of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam? Ahsan. To Kufa. And they moved from Karbala on the 11th day of Muharram. And they brought the Sabaya and the women of Ahlul Bayt through the battlefield to see the severed heads and the bodies of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam and to hurt their hearts more. And then for that day, the 11th of Muharram, and the following night, they were in their way. And you know that from Karbala to Kufa, how many kilometers? Those who have been before to Al-Arba'in Ziyarat, or those who want to go to Ziyarat Al-Arba'in and they want to walk, they know how many kilometers. Because Najaf is connected to Kufa and they walk from Najaf to Karbala. And Ahlul Bayt walked from Karbala to Kufa. How many kilometers? Yes, about 80 to 90 kilometers, 85 kilometers. This is the distance between Karbala to Kufa. In one day and one night, they arrived to Kufa. And that day, and that date was, we moved in the 11th of Muharram, and we reached Kufa in 12th of Muharram, they entered Kufa. Ahlul Bayt, Imam Zayn al-Abidin, and Sayyida Zainab entered Kufa, which was the capital of that district of Iraq at that time. And they entered to the same city of Kufa in which Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam was the Khalifa, and in which Sayyida Zainab alayhi salam was the first lady and the teacher of the ladies of Kufa. But this time, Sayyida Zainab alayhi salam, the same Zainab, entered tied with ropes and chains to her neck and hands and feet, and humiliated by the soldiers of Yazid. To humiliate Ahlul Bayt more in Kufa, they brought them through the market of Kufa and they put them in the place where they normally sell the sheep and the camels, to humiliate them more. And then Ibn Ziyad called everyone to come and have a look at the women and the captives. Some of his friends told them that, do you want the Arab tribes to revolt and rise up against you? Because there are women from the wives of the companion of Imam Hussein among the Sabaya, and they are from these different tribes, and they will feel the shame of it, and they will rise up against you. So Ibn Ziyad ordered every tribe to take their women. So Banu Tamim came and called a lady, Ya Tamimiyya, Ta'ali ilayna, come to us. They took that lady. Banu Asad came and took their woman. Banu Amr came and took their woman. And all the other tribes came and took their woman. And only one mu'mina lady left, which was from Bani Fazara. And her tribe came and said, Ya Fazariya, Ta'ali ilayna, come with us. And this mu'mina lady refused to leave Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam alone. So at the end, her tribe threatened her. If you do not come with us, we will kill you, just to get rid of this shame. So Sayyidah Zainab alayhi salam told her, Jazakillah khayran ya ukhti, may Allah reward you, sister. But go with your tribe, because Bani Umayyah only wants the family and the daughters of Rasulullah to be humiliated. At that point, Sayyidah Zainab alayhi salam started her famous lecture, her famous sermon in the market of Kufa, and said, وَيْلَكُمْ يَا أَهْلَ الْكُوفَةِ أَتَدْرُونَ أي دم لرسول الله سفكتم وأي كبد له فريتم وأي كريمة له أبرزتم. Do you know that you have shed the blood of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam himself? لقد جئتم شيئا إدا تكاد السماوات يتفطرن منه وتنشق الأرض وتخر الجبال حتى. She started with the same eloquency and bravery of her father, Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, and people as if they were listening to Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam himself. She told them that you have committed a big sin, a big crime that will cause the mountains to collapse. Then Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam started his famous lecture, and he told the people of Kufa about the calamities which happened in Karbala, and how they killed Ahlul Bayt, and how even they killed the little infant Abdullah al-Radi' with an arrow in his neck. And after that, Ibn Ziyad took all the prisoners to his palace, where he humiliated them more, and they put them in the prison of Kufa. At that time, a letter came from Damascus, from the Khalifa. Who was the Khalifa at that time in Damascus? Yazid, la'natullah alayhi, ordering Ibn Ziyad to send all the heads and the sabaya of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam to Damascus. So they moved in the next day towards many towns and cities towards the north of Iraq, as I told you, the most distant way, towards Mosul. And these soldiers of Yazid were telling every town that we are going to arrive to you, and with us the captives of the Khawarij who rose up against the king Yazid. So it is a day of Eid for you. You have to wear your good clothes, your nice clothes, and come with your children at the gate of every town. So before the arrival of the Sabaya to every town, to the gate of every town, the soldiers of Yazid will bring the children down from the camel and make them walk chained towards the gate of that town, where the people of that town will receive them with stones. And when they will pass by them, they will stone them and curse them and humiliate them. And they continued like this until they reached to that city in the north of Iraq. What was the name of the city? You are still with me? The city in the north of Iraq. Basra is in the south, dear brother. Deep south. What was the city in the north of Iraq? We just talked about it. Mosul, brother Muhammad. Mosul. And when they reached to Mosul, they were received exactly like the other towns. And there the soldiers of Yazid put the head of Imam Hussein alayhi salam on a rock. And few drops from the blood of the neck of Imam Hussein alayhi salam came on that rock. And after the Sabaya moved, this rock remained there. And what happened is that in every Ashura after that, in every year, this blood was becoming fresh again. And the people of Mosul started every Ashura to gather around that rock and cry for Imam Hussein alayhi salam and his martyrdom and remember the suffering of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. And this kept on till the days of Abdul Malik bin Marwan. When Abdul Malik bin Marwan became a Khalifa, he heard about this rock in Mosul and that people are gathering about it, around it. And people are becoming Shias and following Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. So he became very worried of that and very afraid of that. And you can see how few drops of the blood of Imam Hussein alayhi salam can be very powerful and shake the kingdom of that Umayyad king. So he wrote a letter to his governor of Mosul, and this governor came with his soldiers and they broke that rock with their hammers and smashed it. But what happened after that is that more people knew the truth and more people joined the way of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. And as the Holy Quran says in Surah At-Tawbah, verse 23, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, يريدون أن يطفئوا نور الله بأفواههم ويأبى الله إلا أن يتم نوره ولو كره الكافرون. They want to extinguish the light of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with their mouths, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala refuses except to perfect His light. And after Mosul, they moved towards the west. I showed you Mosul, I'll use this again. Here was Mosul, then they started moving in this line from the north of Iraq to the north of Syria. And here somewhere near Mosul, they passed through Sinjar. And in this Sinjar, a little girl from the Sabaya by the name of Zainab passed away because of torturing and whipping. And now when you go to Sinjar nowadays, you will see two hills facing each other. One of the hills is totally barren with no trees and grass. And the other hill is full of greenery and roses and trees. And on the top of that hill, there is a very wonderful shrine of that Zainab. And nowadays, all the Shias of Mosul, because Karbala is very far from them, all the Shias of Mosul and the neighboring areas on the day of Arba'een walk on foot, march towards that shrine of Zainab bint al-Hussein. They call it Zainab bint al-Hussein because she was from the family of Hussein alayhi salam. And there they get their hajat, and many sick people are recovered, to the extent now that the Christians of that area and the Yazidis, there is a minority called Yazidis, also started to come to that shrine to take their hajat from Zainab bint al-Hussein. Imagine, dear brothers and sisters, a little girl of Imam Hussein and the Sabaya who died in a deserted land, now have this beautiful shrine, and all the people march towards it from the Mu'mineen and of the other religions. Yazid, what he did want by bringing Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam from distant way, he wanted to humiliate them more and make them more suffer. But Allah's planning was to spread the light of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam more, and leave in every town and in every city they passed through a shrine, a reminder of the suffering of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, which will be a light during all the times and during all the ages to remind of the message of Imam Hussein and what he was killed for. And this is in Sinjar, which is a deserted land. After Sinjar, Sinjar is near to the borders with Syria. They kept going, and there they passed through a city called Nasibin, then Harran, until they reached to Aleppo, very tired, in an afternoon of one day. When they reached to Aleppo, very tired, the soldiers of Yazid saw a very old church. And this church is called Martha Marotha Church. It's one of the oldest churches in Aleppo and in the whole world. And they decided to rest in the yard of that church. So they brought the children and the ladies of Ahlul Bayt and made them sit on the dust in one of the corners of that yard. And then they put the head of Imam Hussein, to humiliate it more, on the ground. And then they started playing chess next to the head of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. So the priest of that church heard this laughing and this noise and came out to see who it is. And he was surprised to see little children chained with ropes and with chains, and with some ladies sitting on the grounds with so pure faces, faces full of light. And on the ground there is a head shining with light. And these are these soldiers, and there are these soldiers who are playing chess next to it. So he came to them and asked them, who's this head for? They said, this is the head of Hussein ibn Ali ibn Abi Talib. He said, Hussein, son of Fatima, daughter of your prophet? They said, yes. He said, if Isa al-Masih, Jesus the Christ, had a son, we will protect him with our souls. And you sever the head of your prophet's son, and you put it on the ground? So he went into his church, and he came back with a bag of golden coins. And he told these soldiers, I'll give you all this gold, and I've inherited it from my ancestors. And leave this head with me only for this one night. You will not lose anything. And in the morning I'll give it back to you. These soldiers looked at each other happily. They'll get back the head and they'll have this gold. So they accepted. And this priest took the head with him inside that church. What was the name of that church? Martha Marotha. He took it and started to clean the head and wash the head from all the blood and the dust, and put it on a perfumed silk material, and started to talk to this head. Oh head, by the haqq of this noor I see in you, by the haqq of this shining light from your face, I beg you to talk to me. Then the head of Imam Hussein alayhi salam said, oh priest, ishhad an la ilaha illallah wa anna jaddi Muhammad Rasulullah wa sa'akunu shafi'aka fi yawm al-qiyamah. I will intercede for you in the day of judgment. When the priest saw the head of Imam Hussein alayhi salam telling him that, he burst into crying, holding the head of Imam Hussein alayhi salam and crying loudly and saying, وَيْلٌ لِقَوْمٍ ظَلَمُوكَ وَيْلٌ لِقَوْمٍ قَتَلُوكَ أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأن جدك يا حسين محمد رسول الله. For the love of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, please a louder salawat. Then this priest, because he was a skillful sculptor, he was a Roman skillful sculptor, remained the whole night next to the head of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, crying and doing a sculpture, a statue for the head of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, to immortalize this painful scene of this severed head of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, until the morning. And in the morning, he could not tolerate all this oppression and suppression that happened to Imam Hussein alayhi salam. So he took out a sword and he fought the soldiers of Yazid, and he was killed, and he became with the martyrs with Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And now, when you go to Aleppo, you will see a wonderful shrine. This church has become a very wonderful shrine, and it's called the Shrine of the Drop. Strange name, the Shrine of the Drop. Mashhad al-Nuqta, to symbolize those drops of blood of the head of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And dear brothers and sisters, this is the only place in the whole world where you can still see the blood of Imam Hussein. You go there and you see the blood of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And alhamdulillah, many groups were going from Lebanon every year to the ziyarah of this shrine. Alhamdulillah, I was with them and I visited it. And there you can see the blood of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And during history, it happened several times that this blood of Imam Hussein alayhi salam became fresh again. It was a miracle. And the last time was in 1995, in the day of Ashura, when a group of Pakistani and Khoja Zawars, they were reciting Latmiya and doing Ma'tam around this rock. When this blood, this dry drops of blood became fresh again. And these brothers videotaped it and spread this miracle of Ahlul Bayt, of this rock, of the blood of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, to all the humanity. And now you go on YouTube and you search it and you can see this miracle of this rock, of this holy shrine. And that's why nowadays the enemies of Ahlul Bayt, who are controlling big part of Aleppo now, tried several times to control this area of the shrine, but alhamdulillah, until now they were not able to control it. And what happened to the sculpture, to that head? The sculpture was taken by another priest to another church and then was moved to the Museum of Rome in Italy. And nowadays you go to the Museum of Rome in Italy and you see that they have specified a special room for the sculpture of the head of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And in 2001, a group of mu'mineen from Kuwait took a permission from the museum to get a photo of that head of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and they took the photo and put it in one of the Husseiniyyas in Kuwait. And also you can go on the internet and search it and Google it, and you can see the sculpture of the head of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, which was done by that priest in that church. What was the name of the church, brother? Martha Marotha Church. And then from Aleppo, as we said, and here again for the brothers who are not here, they moved first from Karbala in the south of Iraq to Mosul in the north of Iraq. Then they came to Aleppo in the north of Syria, and then they were going down here towards Damascus in the south of Syria. So they didn't use this shortcut way from the south of Iraq to the south of Syria, Karbala, Damascus. No, they wanted to humiliate Al-Bayt alayhi salam more, make them suffer more. And we reached here to Aleppo. Then from Aleppo they are coming down. And in their way there is a city called Hama. And in the city of Hama, they rested for one night on the top of a hill. And now that hill is called Jabal Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam. And there is a very wonderful shrine in the same place where Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam prayed. Just a reminder of the suffering of Ahlul Bayt, as I told you. After Hama, they went into Homs in Syria, and then from Homs, they entered to Lebanon. As at that time, there were no borders between Syria and Lebanon. All Syria, Lebanon, Palestine, Jordan was all Shaam, was all called Shaam. So they entered the Lebanese land, they went through Hermel, and then they arrived to Baalbek, where Sayyidah Zainab alayhi salam gave another famous khutbah, the khutbah of Baalbek, and she told the people of the Baalbek of the calamities that happened in Karbala, and how Bani Umayyah mistreated them all the way from Karbala to Aleppo to Baalbek. And there the soldiers of Yazid, again, they mistreated the head of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and they put it on a rock there. And that's why now you go to Baalbek and you see there is another shrine of the head of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. مقام رأس الإمام حسين عليه السلام في بعلبك, the shrine of the head of Imam Hussein عليه السلام in Baalbek. Very wonderful shrine, very peaceful shrine. Inshallah, all of you will go and visit the head of Imam Hussein عليه السلام there. A reminder of the suffering of Ahlul Bayt عليه السلام. And that's why now you will see thousands of mu'mineen every year, and you will see it after 20 days in the day of Arba'in. Thousands of mu'mineen will march and will walk from Beirut to Baalbek at the day of Arba'in to commemorate the Arba'in of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and to remind of the suffering of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, and also to visit Sayyida Khawla bint al-Husayn alayhi salam, and to visit that wonderful shrine of Sayyida Khawla bint al-Husayn alayhi salam, who's another reminding of all the torture and all the whipping that happened against the children of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. We ask the Almighty Allah, by the haqq of this night, to give us tawfiq again and chance again to visit that holy grave in that holy shrine. After Baalbek, they came towards Damascus, Ahsan. And Damascus was the capital of Bani Umayyah. And Bani Umayyah at that time declared that it's a Eid for the whole kingdom. And all the city of Damascus was decorated. And people of Damascus were told to wear their good clothes, Eid clothes, and bring their children with them to the gate of Damascus. Until Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam entered from Bab al-Sa'at. And because they were told that these are Khawarij and the enemies of Ahlul Bayt and the enemies of Islam, so when they passed through Bab al-Sa'at and then to Suq al-Sham, the market of Sham, which is called today Suq al-Hamidiyya, the people of Sham, they stoned Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. And they cursed them. And they poured boiling water from the roofs on the heads of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. And then they were taken, chained towards the Umayyad mosque, which was connected to the Umayyad palace, where Yazid was sitting on his throne with his ministers and all the members of his palace. And he was hitting the head of Imam Hussein alayhi salam with his stick on the lips of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And he was saying and reading those lines of poetry, where he admitted his kufr and atheism by those lines of poetry, where he says, Layta ashyakhi bibadrin shahidu جزع الخزرج من وقع الأسد لأهلوا واستهلوا فرحا ثم قالوا يا يزيد لا تشل لعبت هاشم بالملك فلا خبر جاء ولا وحي نزل. He's saying it openly, saying his kufr. There is no revelation revealed, ولا وحي نزل. So Sayyida Zainab alayhi salam started her famous lecture, and she said, Ya Yazid, فكد كيدك واسع سعيك وناصب جهدك فوالله لا تمحو ذكرنا ولا تميت وحينا. Oh Yazid, do whatever you want, do your best. You will not be able to remove our mentioning and to kill our revelation, the revelation of Quran. Then Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam started his famous lecture, and he disapproved and falsified all the lies of Yazid. And he explained to people that they are the very family of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, and how Yazid killed them in Karbala, and how he severed the heads, and how he captivated the ladies and the children. He started telling them who he is and who is his great grandfather. He said, أنا ابن مكة ومنى أنا ابن زمزم والصفا أنا ابن خير من طاف وسعى أنا ابن خير من حج ولبى أنا ابن من حمل على البراق في الهوى أنا ابن من صلت عليه ملائكة السماء أنا ابن من أوحى إليه الجليل ما أوحى أنا ابن محمد المصطفى. Then he told them who is his grandfather. He said, أنا ابن من ضرب بين يدي رسول الله بسيفين وطعن برمحين وهاجر الهجرتين وبايع البيعتين وقاتل ببدر وحنين ولم يكفر بالله طرفة عين ليث الحجاز وكبش العراق مكي مدني بدري أحدي تهامي هاشمي وارث المشعرين وأبو الحسنين ذاك جدي علي بن أبي طالب. Then he told them who is his grandmother. He said, أنا ابن سيدة النساء, أنا ابن فاطمة الزهراء, أنا ابن الطهر البتول, أنا ابن بضعة الرسول. Then he told them who is his father. He recited for them like a majlis of azab. Imam Sayyidina Abdi said, أنا ابن المقتول ظلما, أنا ابن محزوز الرأس من القفا, أنا ابن العطشان حتى مضى, أنا ابن مسلوب العمامة والردى, أنا ابن من رأسه على السنان يهدى. I am the son of the one whose head is on a spear presented as a gift. أنا ابن من حرمه من العراق إلى الشام تسبى. I am the son of the one whose women were captivated as slaves from Iraq to Syria. Then the people of Sham started crying and weeping, and they started to know the reality. So Yazid became very afraid from this powerful action of the people of Sham, and he was afraid from any uprising that will happen against him. So he told Imam Zayn al-Abidin that you are released. So Imam Zayn al-Abidin took all the ladies and the heads of Shuhada'i Karbala, and he went back to Karbala. And this is again the map here. He used this shortcut way from Damascus here to Karbala. He left Damascus on the 8th of Safar and reached on the day of Arba'in. So how many days is that? No sister, not 20. He left on the 8th and reached on the 20th. Ahsant. 12 days. So Imam alayhi salam took that journey in a shortcut way, and he reached to Karbala on the day of Arba'in. And there he met Jabir bin Abdullah al-Ansari. Jabir was before him with Atiyya al-Awfi. He told Atiyya, oh Atiyya, I see some people coming from the side of Sham. Go and see if they are the soldiers of Yazid, so we can hide somewhere. And if it's my master Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam, tell me to receive him. So Atiyya came and told Jabir, oh Jabir, it's your master Imam Zayn al-Abidin coming with Sayyida Zaynab alayhi salam and the children and the heads of Shuhada'i Karbala. So Jabir came towards Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam, and they hugged each other and they cried loudly. Imam alayhi salam told him, Huna ya Jabir qutilat rijaluna. Here, O Jabir, our men were killed. Huna ya Jabir dhubihat atfaluna. Here in this place, our children were slaughtered. Huna ya Jabir huriqat khiyamuna. Here in this place, our tents were burned. Huna ya Jabir subiyat nisa'una. Here in this place, our ladies, our women were captivated. And that's why the Sha'ar of Ahlul Bayt, the poet of Ahlul Bayt, says on the day of Arba'in, قم جدد الحزن في العشرين من صفري ففيه ردت رؤوس الآل للحفر. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا آل محمد أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين. اللهم إنا نسألك وندعوك ونتوسل إليك بأحب الخلق إليك محمد وعلي وفاطمة والحسن والحسين والأئمة التسعة المعصومين من ذرية الحسين. فرج عنا يا الله. اللهم عجل لوليك المهدي الفرج والعافية والنصر. اجعلنا من خير أنصاره وأعوانه والمدافعين عنه والمستشهدين بين يديه والثائرين معه للحسين الشهيد. اللهم أرنا الضلعة البهية والغرة الرشيدة واكحل نواظرنا بنظرة منا إليه. اللهم عجل فرجه وسهل مخرجه وأوسع منهجه واسلك بنا محجته. اللهم من كان في مجلسنا هذا في هذا اليوم الأليم الأول من صفر صاحب حاجة، اللهم اقضي حوائجنا اللهم يسر أمورنا، اللهم فرج همومنا وغمومنا، اللهم شافي مرضانا، اللهم وفق إخوتنا وأخواتنا المؤمنات في هذه المجموعة المباركة لخدمة أهل البيت عليهم السلام أكثر وأكثر. اللهم ارحم أمواتنا وإلى أرواح أمواتكم جميعا وأرواح أموات المؤسسين لهذا المجلس المبارك. رحم الله من قرأ سورة المباركة الفاتحة تسبقها بأعلى أصواتكم. صلوات على محمد وآل محمد.